I've asked you a few questions, but I've steered clear of certain subjects because I know you have a story to tell, and I'm really eager to hear it and to learn more about you and to do a little bit of a deep dive, because though I've learned quite a bit about you on TikTok, but you've only got that 1 minute. And so I'm really eager to hear your story and, get a little more insight. So give it to me.
I've got plenty to tell. So I, being the person that I am, I did a lot of research on, this thing called the vaccination. And we had, a thing called COVID out there in the world. And I thought, I live in Tennessee, which, as many of you know, Tennessee is kind of out there in the world as not the most up and coming place in the world for vaccinations.
Progressive, and maybe not that progressive. Maybe.
Yeah, not terribly progressive, especially recently when we talked about vaccines. I think we're the last in the country, from what I've read, for vaccinations, which is not surprising. Yeah, we're a bit behind. And I live in East Tennessee, which is typically one of the furthest behind with things like that. Nashville is much more progressive than Knoxville, which isn't surprising.
Yeah, because it's an industry town, it's a music town, and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's that way. But I had seen information on the vaccinations, and I made the educated decision to get my vaccination, which some people did, some people didn't. My husband is in law enforcement, and he decided he was one of the first people to get offered the vaccination. And his father actually has MS. And long ago, during the Vietnam era, he was given a vaccination during the Agent Orange issues. And he got MS right after that. So because of it, my husband's always been kind of weird about vaccinations. We've vaccinated our kids, every single one that they're supposed to get. They've gotten them. They've been fine. But my husband's still a little about it. So he didn't get it, which is fine. It's his decision.
By the way, my husband, neither. And I did after a very long time of thinking that I wasn't going to. And my son has not, and his girlfriend hasn't, and my daughter has. And I don't judge either way, because I think that it's such a personal decision. And, I don't judge. I see both sides of the coin. I can see both sides of the argument. And my kids did not get all their vaccinations. Like when you go in and they're a little tiny baby and they're like, they hand you a pamphlet and it tells you all the side effects. And in rare cases, death. I'm like, wait, but is whooping cough even a thing anymore? Like there was a couple that I didn't do, and they didn't make me, and it wasn't a big deal, and it didn't keep them from going to school or anything. And I had a couple of women friends that were moms at the time that didn't vaccinate their kids. So, and that was, my kids are in their 20s, like mid 20s. So this was a while ago. So, okay. So you make an informed decision to do it. Your husband decided not to.
He didn't get it. And again, I agree with you. I think it's totally a personal choice. And there's a lot of media out there saying, get it, we'll give you this if you do it. There's, depending on where you live, especially, I know that in New York, especially, there's a lot of people saying this area just got obliterated by COVID. We really are encouraging you to do that. There wasn't a ton of pressure where I live because it's where I live. But I thought, okay, let's do it. So I chose the Johnson & Johnson vaccination because it was one and done. Being a busy mom,
me too.
I thought, what the hell? Let's just do it. Especially with my husband's schedule, because he's a detective, it's nuts. Some days he can be out for like a normal 8-hour shift. Sometimes it's like 3 days he's gone. So I didn't want to do the whole like come back exactly 2 weeks from now, because I didn't know if I could. So I did this.
Yeah.
Johnson &
So
Johnson.
you have twins that are 3?
They're 4.5. So my son is 8. He's a delightful kid. I know a lot of parents say like, my kid is just wonderful and all this crap, and they're full of shit. They are. I have parents in my neighborhood too. They're like, oh, my little blah, blah, blah. He's such an angel. He's just wonderful. And they come over and they present so well. And then it's like, what the hell? Your kid is just a demon child. But my kid really is. He's sweet. I've seen him reach out to the kids that everyone makes fun of, and he's their friend. He's that kid. And we've raised him to be that kid, and we're very hard on him if he's ever like part of that group that's, you know, wants to bully the other kids. Like that's not going to fly. So he's a sweet kid. And then we were told we could never have kids. So we had an 8-year-old, or we have an 8-year-old. And then we thought, let's try for one more. And there's 2.
Wait, how were you told you could never have kids?
So I have or had endometriosis. I was 15 when I was diagnosed. I started having periods when I was 11, which is early.
Oh, honey.
And I knew something was wrong because just something didn't feel right. The way that I was taught they're supposed to feel, I thought this isn't normal because they were 25 days at a time. And I thought, yeah, I was in like the 4th grade.
And you're
like,
11?
Like, what is wrong here? This isn't normal. Like, I was so early that like there weren't even trash cans in the elementary school bathrooms. I'm thinking, what the hell? Like, does anyone else have this experience? Like, why am I the only person bleeding? Like, and I was so anemic. Like,
oh, honey,
it's nuts.
And was your mom? Did she know what was going on? Was she able to support you?
She knew something wasn't right because I told her, she's like, why are we buying so many supplies? Like, this isn't normal. And I'm like, I know, like, right. So she knew something wasn't right. And this was before WebMD and, you know, before you'd Google anything and it was cancer automatically. So, you know,
wait a minute, I have a hangnail. I think I have cancer of the finger.
FYI, you are dead. You should go to morgue now. She knew something was wrong. So finally, by the time we went to, my mom took me to a doctor that went to our church because my mom was a minister. Whole other story. But we went to a doctor who didn't want to put me on birth control because I was 13 when, yes, she was against it because I was 13. So that was a very ridiculous path.
Yeah. I'm not going to put you on birth control because if I do, you as a 13-year-old are suddenly going to be having sex.
Yes, because I would automatically be slutty. And her son was the same age as me and we were in the same youth group. And of course, that would just be immoral. And what a hoe bag I would be in the church youth group. I'd be hoeing it up. And aside from that, not that it should matter. I know, I'd be the total like slutty church hoe bag in the youth group. Like, watch out for Sarah. Like, here she comes. She's on birth control, everybody. But that shouldn't matter because she's a doctor and she should care. But she refused to put me on birth control. She thought it was wrong, which I don't know how that's.
How you can? Oh man! First of all, it's not her job to make that moral decision. It's
exactly
her job to be your physician. Do no harm.
It was great. So I don't believe I was put on birth control at that time. But by the time I was 15, my mom finally took me to her OBGYN, and he was the first doctor that said, oh, this is endometriosis, like clear signs. Like, and by this point, I was so sick that I actually was on home instruction in high school. I was taken out of school because I was beyond anything. He said, yeah, she shouldn't be missing school. This is very clearly this. Let's do a surgery to confirm it. She'll be fine. They did a surgery, confirmed it. He said this was the worst case I've ever seen in anyone, let alone a 15-year-old.
Wow.
So long story short, I got, shortly after that, I was put on a new drug called Lupron, which puts you into medically induced menopause when I was 16 years old. And I missed an entire year of high school being put on that at home. So that was a great year of my life.
Pretty serious physical challenges along the way.
Before this. And yes, that was in high school. And once I had the medically induced menopause, I was fine after that for several years. So they told me because of all of the endometriosis, I wouldn't be able to have children. And the doctor said there's absolutely no chance because of how severe it is and all of the damage it's done to your ovaries and all of these experimental drugs we put you on that you'll ever be able to conceive. So,
and how did that land on you as a 15-year-old girl?
At the time, too, I was dating my now husband. I met him when I was 14.
Come on.
So, yeah, we've been together ever since. We were best friends. And
I love him already. I love him.
The hoe bag that I was. So
yeah, such the hoe bag. The Hoe Bag and the Cop. Oh, it's a sitcom.
Oh, it's lovely. We should have started one back then. It would have been great. Just walking out of my church with my like naughty lingerie on, like pastor's daughter. But it hit really hard.
Yeah, of course.
I never really thought, I think growing up with a single mom, I never really thought of having children of my own because I saw her struggle. And so I didn't want to do that to my kids. I think when you grow up in that environment, you never picture two parents. And so when my now husband and I were younger and we talked about, what would it be like having a family? I thought, there could be two parents in this situation. Like, oh my God, there might be two people like raising children.
Now, because I don't know how to turn the fucking notices off on my phone, I got distracted. So I'm so embarrassed, but I don't want to pretend like I heard it. What happened to your dad? Where was your dad?
Oh, so my parents got divorced when I was 4. My parents.
And are you an only child?
No, I have 2 older brothers. My brothers are both disabled combat veterans. So,
wow.
Yes, they both have PTSD. One has, he's fully disabled from that, and the other is fully disabled from PTSD and a traumatic brain injury. So, one was in Iraq and one was in Afghanistan. So, yeah.
Wow. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry.
And they're actually the reasons why I am no longer in journalism, because I went to school for journalism to be a war correspondent. And when they were overseas, I decided I don't want to be a war correspondent anymore because that sounds like a fucking terrible idea. So
was your dad in the military?
My mom was. My mom's an MP.
Oh, okay. So your brothers followed in her footsteps to a certain extent, yes?
Yes.
And they were both in active combat.
Yep. They went in after 9/11. So it was 2004 and 2006 that they joined.
Jesus.
So, yeah. But my parents were divorced when I was younger. They were both Nazarene ministers, and they got a divorce. My father married someone that he met in the church, and that was my first.
Dicey, doesn't it?
Yeah, it got a little dicey. He and that woman were married, and she was my first stepmom. And he's had a few marriages since. And we had a bit of a rocky relationship growing up, but he and I have actually mended our relationship, and he has come around and been a wonderful dad, a wonderful grandfather. So it's just crazy.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
You think of things like that, and like it never works out that way.
Exactly. Because you sort of feel like, the wool is dyed, like the mold has been cast. Like this is who this person is. And he's not the devil, but he wasn't the best dad. But then to have somebody be able to show up and be a great grandfather, that's fantastic. Meaning a wonderful grandfather. That's so great.
Right. And you hear it in so many stories, and it's like, oh God, and this happened and this happened. And my parents always bickered growing up, and there were lots of different stories from different sides growing up, and you never really knew what it was, like who was telling which story, and who said what and what was really true. So
yeah,
I remember living with my mom and seeing my dad on the weekends, and it was just always very, how did it really go down? So
I do probably way too much time examining my childhood because it was so kind of wacky, and I have 2. I happen to be the only girl and the baby as well. And so, there can be a family event, and how my brothers remember it, everybody's got their own version of it. And no, it's not like their version is wrong. It's just, they saw it from their point of view. And the same thing with my parents. Like if both my parents are gone, but, if I tell the story of that time, whatever, fill in the blank, I'm sure my mother's version is different than my father's version. And it's, because we're all coming from our own point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. All right. I got to get us back on track because I feel
totally fine. I took it all over the place.
No, which is good because I don't even know what a Nazarene minister is. So I got that. So let's get back to, it's COVID. you decide you're going to do it. You go do Johnson & Johnson, one and done.
Yes, I did one and done because I'm a busy mom. We had talked about having the twins after not being able to have kids. So I had twins, which is crazy.
So the twins are really like miracle babies. Well, they're and your son as well, right? Because you weren't supposed to be able to conceive.
Yes. So I 2 years previously, after having all the kids, got them all done, having all the history of endometriosis, I would say we, as if my husband shares the body with me. I had decided to go ahead and have the full hysterectomy, get it all taken out because I was not having any more kids after the twins. That was it. After that, it was no more. So I had the hysterectomy. I was completely out of pain for the first time in my life. It felt so good. I was, started running. Running felt amazing. I was not riding a bike outside, but riding a bike in my office, like living a normal life. And it was great. So got the Johnson & Johnson. Felt like it would be a great decision for me. Tried to do my part. And within probably about 12 hours of getting it, I had, the regular fever, the chills, everything that you were supposed to experience. I didn't think much of it. And within about 14 hours, my legs started swelling. I thought, well, this seems really strange. I didn't hear anything about my legs swelling.
Yeah,
and my husband said,
yeah.
And I got this giant stack of papers, and it had all these different numbers that you could call. And I thought, maybe I'm being dramatic, but I don't remember this. My husband's like, you'll be fine. And, he's a cop. So everything's just...
And not just a cop, but a homicide detective.
Exactly.
So he's dealing with yeah.
The worst of the worst. Like, people die all the time. Like, you're not dying. So, and I'm sitting there poking my legs, like, looking at them, like, this doesn't seem normal. Like, they're really, really swollen. Like, this isn't normal. So they keep swelling. I'm thinking, I'm going to die. And I kept telling him, I'm going to die. And I was so dramatic by this point. My fever was so high. It was like 103.
Oh my God.
I'm basically giving myself my own funeral and talking to God at this point. I'm like, God, I don't want to die. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
And where are your babies? Where are your kids?
So they're asleep. They're long asleep. I had taken the shot. Woo, not a fun shot. They're fast asleep at this point, and it's way into the early morning. And I'm just sitting there poking my legs. Kids are asleep. My in-laws happen to be in town too. So my husband's mom and stepdad are sleeping. I'm sitting in the bedroom, just poking my legs, talking to God, thinking I'm dying. It's all good. So then I took like 3 Tylenol PM, a bunch of melatonin. I'm like, at this point, if I'm going to die, I'm at least going to sleep really well. So at this point, I'm like, whatever, I'm going to sleep well and die. And I decide to call Johnson & Johnson at the same time, because they gave a number to call if you're having an adverse reaction. So I call, and the lady does not speak English very well. And she could not get my last name to save her life. And I'm like explaining it to her as best as I can. And she's like, ma'am, I really think you need to go to a hospital. But first, I need to get your email address before you do. And I'm like, is that really a priority right now? And she's like, yes, it is. I'm like, why is that a priority if I need to go to a hospital? So I shit you not, it was 20 minutes of giving her my email address while she's telling me to go to a hospital. So I got so frustrated that I just hung up and I went to sleep because the melatonin finally kicked in and I just passed out. So by the next day, the leg swelling had gone down, and I just tried to, think maybe it's going to be okay. My legs had completely lost feeling the next day, but I thought, I'll be okay. Like, this is going to be okay. And the feeling never came back, especially in the right leg it did, but in the left leg, it never came back. And I thought,
never to this day.
So I have some feeling now.
Okay. And what date was it that this all happened, Sarah?
I got the vaccination April 9th of this year. So by about 48 hours after, the left leg was completely numb. And the weird thing is it was purple, which was concerning to me because purple that can't be a good thing. I kept thinking,
no,
this isn't normal.
Yeah.
So, of course, all this is going on. And then I start getting this just horrible headache. And even hungover, I've never had a headache.
And you still haven't been to the hospital?
No, at no point am I thinking like I'm going to die from having, my leg being numb. And I am not a hospital fan after having years of endometriosis, because it's considered, endo is always an invisible illness. So whenever you went in, especially being a woman, people would always just say like, oh, it's just menstrual cramps, or it's just a female.
So you were used to being dismissed a lot.
Always, especially by male doctors. They would constantly, and I could hear them in the hallway too. They'd say like, oh, it's just women's issues. It's a woman thing. Like, that I can hear you. And it's not just a woman's thing. Like,
and do you think because because of starting at age 11, you had really some severe physical problems, physical pain? Do you think that that's because you're kind of used to it? You're like, the leg's purple. Oh, I can't feel like you're just like, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
So you instead of hanging up on the woman who can't seem to get your last name right, which is, by the way, not that complicated. Instead of hanging up and going to the doctor, going to the hospital, you hang up and you just go to sleep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's just,
there's a podcast which I recommend to you, which I feel like I talk about every time now on the podcast. It's called The Cure for Chronic Pain. And she deals with people that have chronic pain, and people that have chronic pain often have chronic illness like endometriosis or fibromyalgia or whatever. There's a long list, and she's a licensed clinical social worker, and she has this whole mind-body connection. And her belief is that a lot of, not for a second does she ever suggest that anything that's wrong with you that's been medically diagnosed, not for a second is she suggesting it's in your head, but her belief, and I'm probably not going to quote it as well as she does, that oftentimes chronic illnesses have to do with unexperienced grief and pain and anger and stuff like that. She says your issues are in your tissues. Pretty fascinating. So check her out. You're going to like her. Okay. So now it's the next day, post melatonin, post Tylenol PMs, post the woman who can't spell your last name. You wake up, you have no feeling in both your in your legs. And now you're 48 hours later.
So 48, 72 hours later, something like that, I'm just getting these debilitating migraines.
Oh, the headache. Yes.
Yeah. So I never had a headache, even hungover. Like, I've experienced a hangover many times in my life. I've literally face planted on my face before while drunk, and I did not get a headache afterward. Like, no headache. And these headaches were ungodly. Like, I can't imagine. Like, if I were to go to hell, I feel like I've become a better person in order to not go to hell now. Because
right.
I imagine
now, you weren't really working on being a better person, but
no, this has made me a better person, because I imagine that hell would be waiting in the DMV line with a headache like this.
Oh
like,
my God.
Yeah. That bad listening to music, but oh my God, these were just debilitating headaches.
Oh,
and
honey.
I've heard of people saying I've had a migraine, or I have a migraine, I can't make it. And I've just kind of thought, like, get over it. And now I'm like, I get it. Like, I am so sorry for anyone who has headaches out there or migraines. I am so sorry you've had to experience this, because I've never understood it before. So these migraines would take me out, and I thought, what is going on? And so the headaches and then the leg numbness were just unbearable. So I finally go to the PCP. And I've had this doctor for probably 2 years at this point, and he really didn't seem to have much urgency. And he's one of those very gentle Southern doctors. Another kind of cultural thing in the South. I've experienced these types of men before who are just, very, very gentle, very, oh, sweetie, we'll get you right in and we'll just fix you up. I'm like, where is your urgency? Like, I need someone, he's got to have a good set of balls on him. And this guy was just not doing it. I'm like, come on, buddy. Like, let's get here.
So by the time you end up at your PCP, you're like, this is wrong. This is bad. Something's going on. I need help. And he still didn't seem to get it.
He seemed like I had a little tiny piece of wood stuck in my toe or something. Like it's gonna be okay. Like me talking to my 4-year-old. Like it's gonna. So I thought this just doesn't seem right. So he sent me over. He's right across the street from our I call it our farm hospital. We have this little hospital in our community that is just, it's where good people go to die. It's just such a sad, it looks like a prison. It's a sad, sad place for sad, sad people. And anytime I go in there, like the smell, it's like reliving Nom stories. You just don't want to go in there. So he sent me over there for a quick ultrasound of my leg to basically make sure there's not a blood clot. And
right, because it's Johnson & Johnson.
Yes, and of course,
and you're in the age group too.
Yes, which is terrifying. And it's the day before they released the news story about the blood clot.
Oh my God.
So I'm like a ticking time bomb. So they checked me for a blood clot. I didn't have one, luckily, that they could find. And something just was not sitting right with me. And he sent me home. And that night, things were just not getting better. So the next morning, I went to the emergency room because my head had gotten to the point where it was just unbearable. So I went to the emergency room, and of course, right as I got there, the news had broken about the blood clots.
Oh my God.
And they had done another ultrasound of my leg.
And who's watching your kids through all this?
So the kids are in daycare during the day.
Okay, right. Your son's at school. Okay.
Yeah, he's got either school or a summer camp. So luckily, and then my father actually moved to Tennessee, right? About 3 years after we did. He followed us down here because he likes it so much. Like, why not? And then my crazy brother moved down here too. I'm like, why not? I call him crazy. He thinks it's okay.
I was going to say, which crazy brother? Only
just one of them. It's all right. Just one. But we have some family help, and then our friends have been helping too. But I was in the hospital. Long story short, one of the male nurses there, I say male, like I'm just being offensive to men. I promise I'm not. But he said something about, women especially can be really hysterical when things like this hit the news. So I understand what you're going through. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, it's not worth the jail time today. Like, just let it go and go home. So he had dismissed it and they sent me home. And I had actually...
God!
I just couldn't believe it. That's why I hate that hospital. I thought, this cannot be happening to me. Like, something is seriously wrong.
Do you want to mention the name of the hospital? You don't have to. I'm just saying, this is, look, you're not making this up. And you went there for help and you had a nurse condescend to you and basically say, you're being hysterical. And guess what? You had these symptoms before the news ever broke. And you had the symptoms and fucking minimized it. Like, oh, I'll be fine. Let me just take some melatonin. And right?
It was a big deal. I think I would mention the hospital if it weren't for... I did call them back because something in my gut said something's not right. So I did call them back, and the ER administrator, who's a very nice man, he called me and he said, I can't tell you to come back because legally I'm not allowed to tell you that. But if you really feel like something's wrong, I want you to give us another shot. So I did come back, and he actually came in the room and he said, ma'am, I'm so glad you're giving us another shot. Let me get the doctor in here. He brought the doctor in, and that's when they actually did the spinal tap, which was amazing. Yeah. So they did, or they call it a lumbar puncture to sound fancy. They did a lumbar puncture. They basically tested for stroke, and I was admitted to the hospital for 5 days that first time. And long story short, that's when my whole saga of being admitted to the hospital. I've now been in the hospital for 5 different times, 3 different hospitals, including the Underville Medical Center. Which is one of the best hospitals in the country, to basically try to figure out what is wrong with me. And they have not found anything concrete that is wrong with me. They diagnosed me with what's called somatoform disorder, which is what they slap a big label on if they can't find a true diagnosis for what's happening. So
and currently, what are your symptoms right now?
So the biggest thing is still being unable to walk. My left leg has still had a lot of numbness. The right leg actually is now to the point where it's like a connectivity issue where my brain isn't connecting to my legs. So I'm able to walk with my cane or my walker. But if I go to like a big store or something I'm not familiar with, my legs don't move at all. So it's like I just stop whatever I'm doing and I cannot figure out how to walk. My hands have been relatively shaky, but the biggest thing is they feel like pins and needles. So almost like the people that I've talked to who have MS, they feel like their hands are just tight all the time. Sometimes they feel like they're being filled up with sand, and it's a very odd feeling. The headaches are still present a lot. Sometimes I have body tremors. I haven't had any today, which is lovely. And then the cognitive issues are the hardest. The memory issues are awful. I often forget what year it is, what day it is, what month it is. And so that's why I've had speech therapy coming. And people often think speech therapy, like, oh, you're talking just fine, but it's cognitive therapy. So that's why I have these absolutely lovely things that I've been working on.
That's
like, this one is like, look at this picture and then draw it over here. So I basically do children's games all day. Sudoku, word puzzles, word crossword puzzles. And my job is digital marketing. I do digital marketing. I'm a rather intelligent person. I had a very busy lifestyle, very busy job. And right now it's hard for me to even do basic word puzzles, basic Sudoku, because my brain is so foggy. My brain is so unable to just sit down and put pen to paper and really work out basic mind games, basic functions that a normal person should be able to do because of all of this happening in my brain right now. It's absolutely heartbreaking, disheartening, especially watching my 4.5-year-olds absolutely kick my ass at like their matching game. They sit down, they're like, Mommy, are you letting us win? I'm like, yeah. You're doing a great job. And they're like, haha, we beat you again. I'm like, yeah, you did.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been rough. I will say that I'm improving with they've got home health. Finally, we've had a staffing shortage in pretty much everywhere in the country, but in my local community, the home health team has had a staffing issue, so they weren't able to come see me for a few weeks. But now I have PT, OT, speech therapy, and nursing coming daily. So I have different therapists coming every day to my house while I'm taking a sabbatical from work, which is lovely. So they've come and helped me with every single thing I need, and I look so much better than my TikToks. Like every single day, it's better and better and better. So I'm hoping to be like back to my normal self soon. And it's like hearing myself speak and watching myself function. It's like, oh my God, she's there. Like that person I used to be is still there. So
glad. I'm so glad. So this happened April 9th. So we're talking May, June, July. So you're 3+ months. You're about 3.5 months in, right? Even a little bit more than that, 3 months and 2 weeks. So you went through many different doctors and hospitals and all that before you finally have found a place that's actually helping you. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who is that's helping you? What organization?
The home health place that's helping me now is called Blount Home Health. I live in Blount County, Tennessee. And they are the ones, after I left Vanderbilt has been the best hospital of all the ones that I went to. The doctor at Vanderbilt said that what she believes happened with the vaccination, sometimes women, especially in their 20s and 30s, can have what's called somatoform disorder. With the vaccination, sometimes whether it's the medicine or something in your body can basically react to a vaccination or a medicine that sends your brain into like a tizzy, and your brain just does not respond to it. Whether it's your immune system or something, your brain just goes nuts. So it will just go into a downward spiral where all of this stuff can happen.
Right. Yeah, because the brain controls everything, right? So it can give you a headache. It can fuck up your speech. It can certainly screw you up cognitively. It can, if the connection is not happening between your brain and your your nerves telling your feet to move, your legs to move, right?
And that's exactly, and it's like when I walk now, I feel like Frankenstein. I'm like, I
saw you do some dancing there on TikTok pre-vaccine, and you can get down with the best of them.
I love my grooves like I used to.
Listen to me. Sarah's getting her groove back. I feel it.
I am getting my groove back.
Feel it.
Oh, I want it. But they believe it was somatoform disorder. I've been researching, so I'm really into research. I've looked at different books and different things on what could be happening to my blood vessels. There's all sorts of stuff that I still think could be happening. So whether it's somatoform or something else, a lot of the different disorders out there all say that aggressive physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy can help this. So that's the course that I'm on. And that's what the doctor at Vanderbilt said. And thus far, it's all been working. So
oh my God,
who am I to say no to it? So my insurance has approved it all.
Oh, say hallelujah. Who's your insurance?
I have Cigna insurance through my husband's work. And a lot of my TikToks, I feel like I cry in half my TikToks.
And why wouldn't you?
Oh my gosh, it's got out the hard.
It's really hard. It's fucking hard, man.
It is. Oh my God. And it's like, you need a PA for this. I'm like, what the fuck is a PA? And they're like, it's this. I'm like, am I supposed to know that? Like, I didn't go to school for this. I don't work at your company. You get paid to work there, not me. I get so frustrated, but
my best friend's son has chronic Lyme disease, and it's like, and she's a licensed clinical social worker. She has a full-time private practice. She has another son who's on crew. She's a single mom, busy. And the amount of time, things have finally settled down, but the amount of time that she has spent on the phone with insurance, it's like a joke.
They should pay her.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Guess what? I make $175 an hour as a therapist. And so guess what? I'm sending you a bill. Yeah. And being on the phone with the person who doesn't have the answer, doesn't know where the answer is, all of that.
It's ridiculous.
First of all, just congratulations on just being who you are, on being tenacious, on keeping a sense of humor, and even, just being in the corner in the fetal position weeping. Like, that's all okay. Do you know what I mean?
Happened many times.
Absolutely.
Losing it, if you